All right, looks like we're live. How do you say it, Sneed? We're live.
We are live.
Welcome everyone. Thanks for checking out the stream. Today I'm joined by one of my good friends. This man needs no introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyway. I'm here with my good friend Steve Bobotech. My Middle Eastern brother from another mother, and the Habibi. So by the way, this stream has been a long time coming. It's been on me because I kept telling him I'm gonna come back on YouTube, and finally I'm back on YouTube so we can finally have this stream. But yeah, Sneed, he's a tech YouTuber in the sense that he talks about cell phone networks and how they work, the nuts and bolts of it. He's almost at 20,000 subscribers, so let's help him get there if we can. But Sneed, many people know who you are on the channel, but a lot of them also don't. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
All right, so I'm a 30-something whom is an educator by trade, but I also do YouTube as like a side creator type of thing. I've been on the platform for several years, and I've been making videos and live streams, pretty consistently. In terms of the content, it's very much so about mobile technology. It's really cellular networks, mobile devices, things like smartphones and the cellular connectivity and all the different network technology innovations that happen within wireless network operations. So things like what AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, these big mobile networks, national providers, what they're doing. I do a lot of regional and local testing of the networks, the data networks. And I run pretty much a weekly podcast. I have pretty much regular uploads, and I think maybe we first had our interactions through either JG Tech Blog or was it TK? I remember it was one of those channels.
It was TK.
Right, and you've been a big supporter of my community and me creating content for a long time. So getting on this show, I think, was just a foregone conclusion. It was only a matter of time, man. And I mean, about 3 years, 4 years we've known you, John,
Yeah,
through
about
the
was like 4 or 5 years probably.
Yeah, it's been a while, man. So I'm glad to be here. I'm very excited about this opportunity to speak to your folks and kind of have this I really consider you a friend, as somebody who from a cultural standpoint, I think we understand each other. Our parents are of the same generation,
Mhm.
right? And then we're kind of the same, right? So we kind of know those things. It's relatable. And we're going to talk about some tech related stuff and kind of society items. And by the way, congratulations on you getting back on the YouTube creating content. I
Thank
love
you.
the pace of the channel. Regular uploads, live streams, little shorts, bro. It's been great. I've watched pretty much everything you've done, and some of the guests you've had have been awesome. So salute to you, sir. It's been great having you back.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate the kind words, and I wanted to have this conversation because I feel it's very important to talk about. Who to talk about, better than someone who covers, cell phone technology on their channel because, yeah, people, still use their laptops and desktops. Well, not many people use desktops these days, but on their iPads and on their cell phones. So, I'm sure you might have noticed some trends that maybe as because one of the things that you talk about on channel is how data speeds or networks are improving, or cell phone companies are improving their networks, and as a result their download speeds are getting faster, which kind of goes into how people are consuming more data. Have you seen any trends where people are downloading more video than social media more than ever nowadays as a result of those faster networks?
Yeah, I feel like these things, it's kind of going hand in hand. So it's like we've watched the data demands increase. Therefore, the mobile network operators like Verizon, T-Mobile, and AT&T, they've had to deal with it. Okay, so you've got X number of customers who are going to be on these cell phone towers, and they've got these types of habits and these types of behaviors. They're consuming X amount of gigs of data per month. And this, they look at the analytics and the data, and they know they have to create capacity on these tower sites so that the network doesn't fail. You obviously have to support calling, you have to support texting. But what's happened mostly, like the calling and the texting is pretty much all the same. Those don't really take a lot of data. It's been the consumption of gigs of data through video applications, right? So the streaming, the uploading of content through apps like TikTok and Snapchat and Instagram, there's been this enormous boom with all these apps and creator content, where people are live streaming. You need downlink and uplink to do that. So not only have they had to increase, like, say, for example, the tower grid, you've got to put more towers in places, but they've also had to buy more spectrum licenses to create more capacity, upgrade the fiber that's at the towers so they can create the capacity, because now people are doing more and more on mobile networks. So now John can mobile live stream. Before, he used to have to be at home on his home network to do his live stream. Well, now you could take the show on the road. And a lot of creators do. I myself live stream all the time while mobile. In fact, that's the name of the game. Everything I do is mobile based. That's like, it's in the name of the channel, Sneed Mobile Tech, right? So I have to create content, make videos, upload videos, do it all on my mobile device. The only thing I technically do at my residence is just my podcast, right? Doing it as a live stream at home on my desk and here at, in my chair. Everything else is all mobile, recording, uploading. I could do it all mobile now. So the question becomes is, did they build the network and then people started using their devices, or was it the other way around? People demanding it from the devices and the network catching up. It's both. People started using their mobile devices in certain ways, and then the mobile networks are like, sheesh, look at all this traffic. We need to make our networks more capacitive. So it's this arms race. One started using more, so the other had to respond and make more available capacity. So is it the chicken or the egg argument? Not really. It's just both things are happening simultaneously, and it's like a boxing match. One fighter gets punched, then the other one is returning the punch. So that's kind of how I look at the consumer and then also the network operator.
Yeah, exactly. Bob's some really good points there, and this is something that we've talked about privately in terms of the demand here in LA. I was talking a couple of weeks ago about how I have my not to get too technical here, but I have my AT&T prepaid SIM in my Pixel 6, and then sometimes I feel AT&T is slowing me down. Granted, I don't have the top tier plan, but it's still one of the better plans that AT&T has to offer. So I end up going with a Verizon iPhone 13, because sometimes one network does better than the other. With anyone with so many people having, or being on their smartphones on one tower here in LA, especially like if you're somewhere like I hate the new name, Crypto.com Arena. I still call it Staples Center.
Yeah, yeah.
The house that Kobe built.
Mhm.
So places like that, or like if you're in Hollywood, Santa Monica, more of the tourist sites, there's just so much demand. And I see it all day long. People, you can tell when someone's watching a story on Instagram or TikTok, there's just so much being demanded from these networks. And I was thinking the same thing whenever you said that. Which one came first, the chicken or the egg? Like, are people demanding more of these networks, or are networks creating better networks in order so that people can use them and they can create more streams of revenue? You mentioned that people are downloading more videos. Instagram and TikTok are short form videos. Do you see people using has there been an increase in usage like Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max, and some of the longer form video streamings?
I think what's happening is obviously people are consuming more on the go, right? They've got commutes to work. Some people do podcasts, some people do videos. Some people are watching straight up shows and movies. If you take about like someone who is on a bus or a train or a subway, well, 100% they could consume tons of content during their commute to work. They can watch an entire episode of whatever show. They could watch a movie or parts of a movie throughout the day, through like Netflix or Hulu or something like that. But in terms of like the data demand, I think it's just the depth of the connection to the mobile device. So it's not just the consuming of the video, it's the fact that the smartphone, this incredible 6-7 inch display that you have, allows you to do so much now. It's a productivity tool, it's an entertainment tool, it's a communication tool. All right, so when you and me were kids and we got our first phones, it was a communication device. That has almost taken a back seat to its new primary use, which is media consumption. Telecommunications takes very little data, doesn't bother the networks whatsoever. The media consumption, you need several megabits per second of throughput to watch a high resolution video, right? Even if it's, say, for example, like a 3-minute video on Instagram, right? Or if it's like a 30-second snap of someone doing whatever, those are heavy data demands. Everything we're doing now is more data intensive, and we're doing it for longer amounts of time. The screen time, right? The calculation you see on an iPhone or the calculation you see on your Google Pixel. They got screen on times of 7 hours a day. Well, you're only awake for like 16 or 18 hours. So half of your day you're engaging with the display. So you're consuming stuff. And then for the creator, or for somebody who's actually uses it as a productivity tool, it's not 6 and 7 hours. It's more like 10 because you're doing things from the device. Like I was talking to No Radio the other day, and he was telling me, he's like, dude, we do activations through our mobile devices. So they're on the Verizon network, AT&T network, whatever they have, and they're doing activations. So the productivity end of things, the job like look at your gig economy. Like the gig economy relies on a mobile network to be A plus all the time.
It
If
really
you lose
does.
connectivity, I mean, I get why you have two devices. I would have two devices if I was in the gig economy, right? If I was working for Grubhub, DoorDash, any of these, Uber Eats, whatever, I would have two. I would have a backup. I'd have a personal. I'd have my work, and I would be writing them off as, tax deductions. You know what I mean? I would, and who knows? Maybe having a third makes sense. I don't know. Having like a tethering hotspot plan or something, maybe that would work. But like, we're falling back on the reliance of these devices for so many different things. They've become primary productivity tools, plus communication devices, plus entertainment devices. That's the trifecta. That's how it impacts so many different angles of our lives.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm glad the fact that brought up how how we used to use cell phones, because I didn't get my first cell phone until I was in high school. We both come from Middle Eastern families, so they didn't really believe in giving us phones. Or speaking for my family, we didn't really believe in cell phones until unless it was absolutely necessary. It's like, hey, if something happens at school or whenever you get picked up, call us. But my first phone, it was the what was it called, a Motorola V60.
I
It was like the
remember the V60.
monochrome. It was like a
Yeah.
monochrome flip phone, Motorola.
Had that
You
little
know,
antenna at the top, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
T9 texting.
Mhm. Yes, sir.
Yeah, that was my first one. Do you remember what your first phone was?
I had the Motorola StarTAC. So I had the V60,
hmm It
but
was a
that
very
was
popular
like
phone, by the way.
I'm a little older than you. So I had the V60, but I had it after. Like I had the
Mm,
V60 probably my senior year in high school and then going into college. Before that, I had like a Motorola T720. And then before
mhm.
that, I had a StarTAC, my first phone. All right. And that was like in 2000. All right. So I was probably 16, 17-ish. And it was the clamshell thing.
Yeah,
And it had and you would bite the antenna to pull it out and you
I
flip it
remember.
open. And when you were aggravated with somebody, you would slam it shut.
Yep.
Yeah.
What do you mean you don't have my homework? Close it. I also remember the Nextel days, because I had a Boost mobile phone. It was a button that was like that was the phone to have. You
Yeah.
press a button and it flips up. I
Mhm.
think it was the
I
i860, and
remember that. I
that
remember the
was.
Unidens, the yellow phones, the construction version that
Yep,
they used to have.
the rugged
Yeah.
phones. Yep.
Uh-huh.
Back then, that was in terms of evolution of technology. That was really cool, because they call it a chirp. You would chirp someone. And by the way, this is for like construction workers and people who are doing actually business. But in high school, I would see people having like full blown conversations through walkie talkie. That's not what it was meant for. Um, but yeah, cell phone. We've seen them grow so much. And you're right in a sense that as because we have a lot of gig workers on my channel. We depend, like you're exactly correct, we depend on our phones. For me, my biggest thing is if the network lags a little bit, it's okay. But for me, the directions, like Google Maps, is the most important thing, because I'm going to an area where I don't know. I've grown. I've kind of gotten used to all the major cross streets, but still, if my Google Maps lags for a second or two, I miss a turn and I have to go all the way around. And so there's definitely big reliance on cell phone technology nowadays. So do you think as cell phone companies um, become more advanced, and their download and upload speeds get faster, do you think we're going to start seeing maybe new companies or current companies kind of push the envelope in what they can offer in terms of media to the Americans?
Well, I think what's gonna probably happen is gonna be new use cases, right? When it comes to like 5G networks, The concept is here's what you've been able to do with LTE. Here's what you've been able to do with 3G. We've progressed and evolved in our use cases. We can now do more capacitive, hungry things. So before you had to be on like a wired connection. Then when things started to move towards wireless with like Wi-Fi, well, now you can do most of the thing you used to do wired, you can now do wireless. So they had to create capacity and you had to create really seamless experiences. That's going to be the same thing with 5G. You're trying to bring down the latency so all of the really responsive instantaneous connections. So it's not just about being fast, it's about connecting fast. So like how long is it going to take for this device to connect to this network? We can make plenty of capacity. Now we have to get the devices connected like millisecond, right? So it can't take 30 milliseconds. It has to take 1 millisecond, 2 milliseconds. We want it like wireless fiber.
Hmm.
Now we can start doing some really interesting things. So, like the AR VR piece, you have to have ultra low latency to make augmented reality a thing, especially in mobile networking. So then you could take your Oculus, you could do training. Like, imagine you are doing flight simulations. Well, you can get like real time feedback over a network. A mobile, like these are the things that I think are really important. So, like, even when we look at, say, like as a content creator who's uploading videos or doing live streams, I mean, we can mostly do that now. I think it's the other use cases and some of the things that we don't know what we're going to do with it. Our conversation in 5 years, John, going to be very different.
Hmm.
So it's going to be like, oh, here's this new product, here's this new service. I'm getting this job training, and I'm going to do all my training as a simulation. You'll be doing your training through the metaverse for all I know. I don't know. Who knows? I mean, Zuckerberg's got plans, bro. I don't know how he plans executing, but having like these virtual spaces, and that's what the mobile networks are probably going to be enabling.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm glad you brought up AR, VR, and the metaverse because I kind of wanted to get into that later in the stream. But since we're already on topic, let's talk about now. And this is kind of left field, but I feel like that's what cryptocurrency is for. We're seeing we know like the popular ones like Bitcoin, Ether. I was gonna say Ethernet, Ethereum. Ethereum. But the smaller ones that are, I think they're going to be metaverse specific. Like I know Shiba Inu. That's a popular one. They're trying to build their own metaverse. I think Dogecoin is probably going to go on a similar route. But kind of relating to the topic, I think that all the technology, it all sounds great. I think, but it's also going to depend on our mobile technology. Which you're really good, which you're really good at covering, and I think that we're a little bit behind compared to internationally, like Japan, China. I think their networks are more advanced. Do you think that we can look at those countries that are a little bit further ahead in their build outs and kind of see what we might get here in the States?
I think what those countries that you named, take for example Japan, their infrastructure investment is something we can aspire to. It's really the only thing they do better than us. We have the same technologies they do. They're a little bit of a smaller geographical space, so it's a little bit easier to cover an entire country when it's the size of California, right? For example, if it's smaller, so I think they have an advantage when you're a smaller country. You can focus your spending on a smaller space. It's tougher for a country like America, which is large, more like the size of China, for example. That makes a little bit more of a challenge, but we're still definitely top 5 international when it comes to mobile network technology. We're still top 5. But yeah, like South Korea is probably ahead of us. Definitely Japan. They've got a much more focused intention when it comes to their infrastructure. But in its collective, that's what Japan does really well. Like if you take, for example, Tokyo, I think Tokyo proper probably has like 20 or 25 million people. That's a big city. But I think in like greater Tokyo and the surrounding area, it's probably closer to 40 million. You can't have cities like that without infrastructure. Like they don't have infrastructure failure. They've got redundancy. They've got focused spending, repairs, maintenance. It's like it's a version of New York if everybody cared, right? So not just Manhattan looks awesome, right? And the other boroughs would suffer in terms of infrastructure. They give it to the whole city. and their transport system, all based on communications, right, and infrastructure. I think that's what countries like that have been able to do that are ahead of us, and that's where we lack. Certain parts of our countries don't have that same investment and don't get the same attention because they don't have the population, the ROI. And when I say ROI, return of investment. Companies and especially the government looks at it like, well, yeah, we want everybody to have fiber and we want everybody to have utilities, but like in a city where there's 2,000 people and they only have like two streetlights, or we look at a city that has like 800 people and they have one general store. It's like watching a Western movie. You're watching, you're like, damn, I've lived in LA so long, or I've lived in Cleveland so long. Like we have like 20 Walmarts in our county. You know what I mean? And in some of these cities, they're lucky to have a Walmart. I mean, heck, could you imagine the lifestyle of somebody who lives out in Wyoming who has to drive 4 hours to get to Sam's Club to do their shopping? So they do it like once a month. So it's really about how much focused investment have you put into these things that you want to be great at? And that's where I think those countries have prospered. Their investments are paying out.
Yeah, while you were talking, I was reminded of how my two of my cousins, they actually moved to New Mexico from LA, and they saw it firsthand experience, that how different it could be, going from a massive city like LA going to somewhere in New Mexico. And I think they're in a small town. I don't think they're in a in a big part of New Mexico, but they uh they were going to get a Walmart there, in a couple months, and they were super excited because the nearest Target or nearest other Walmart was about 2 hours away. And so we're in big cities. I'm in LA. You're in Cleveland, or you're in Cleveland market. I think sometimes the technology that we have offered to us, especially mobile networks, we take it for granted because I feel like we're spoiled for choice. We can choose from T-Mobile, AT&T, or Verizon, but a lot of these people, they don't have that option. Sometimes when one net or one company builds out their network in a certain area, it can be really expensive, and sometimes companies take advantage of it. But also, I also see their argument as well, because they're building everything from scratch, and they might not have as many consumers to charge, or to get on a network. So with that being said, I know one of the things that you talked about on your channel, is that people who don't have robust mobile networks, or at least a wide variety like we do here in big cities, um, do you think that they I don't want to use the word suffer, but do you think that they might be at a disadvantage in the sense that I know education is something you talked about in your on your network, but do you think also like using some of the social media apps, or maybe other streaming services, do you think they're at a disadvantage?
Well, with a lack of connectivity, right? You're gonna struggle to get connected, stay connected, right? It's because sometimes the networks are good enough everywhere, like for calling and texting, for example, but maybe there's not enough throughput, there's not enough capacity, generally speaking, not uniform well enough to where like you would be moving. You're mobile throughout your day. You might not be able to have a consistent experience. I think that's the trouble, right? So like if I'm going from point A to point B, if there's a rough patch between A and B, I'm going to be, it's going to be discontinuous. I may drop out and lose coverage, right? So you might have like a signal. You've seen people talk about bars on phones. You going from A to B, you drop out for about 2-3 miles. Well, then it's like you never had a connection to begin with. You started something, you were unable to complete it because you couldn't make it to B without a disconnection from point A. So I think that's going to be one of those issues for some people is they don't have a capacitive uniform experience throughout the duration of where they live or where they work. You're having like it'd be the same as if you like were accepting a ride or an order and then like you go to swipe to accept it, you lose network connection and then you lose out on that opportunity. You lost a transaction. And who knows if that disconnection could cost you a rating. They're like, "Oh, well, what is John doing? John's BSing on the app. He's turning it off and on or whatever." I remember those problems when I used to work for Uber. They would accuse someone of like not accepting rides. They shut you out of the app. What if that was happening to someone? Or what if you're on a video call? I know you work with clients over video calls and FaceTime. What if you can't hold that as your mobile, right? Because you're trying to do your side gig, you're trying to do this, that, and the third. multitasking is important to the modern person. By multitasking, you're more productive. You can generate a higher quality of life. You can earn more. Well, if you don't have that coverage that's uniform, then you may not have the ability to properly execute all of your productivity needs.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you said there. Facts right there. One of the things that as you were speaking, I was thinking about. Oh, by the way, but before I speak on that, can you explain what a capacitive network is to the average person? Because a lot of the people in my community aren't too familiar with mobile networks. Can you explain what that is?
Sure. So cellular networks, the cells, which are the cell towers, they've got radios, they've got antennas, they push out signals so that your smartphones can connect to them. Let's say that John is 2 miles from a cell tower. For the most part, he should be okay to be able to connect to that cell tower, make his calls, send, receive his text messages. Probably enough capacity for him to be able to do basic data demands. So that would be, the completing like a voice call, right? But also doing a video call. You need capacity to do a video call. You need about 2 to 5 megabits per second. All right, that's a small amount of capacity. So even though you're a couple miles away from a cell, you should be able to handle that. The further you go away from a cell, the signal quality degrades, the amount of available capacity is reduced. Right? Your signal is not that strong and your signal is not that clean. As the quality degrades, as the signal quality decreases, you get a less consistent experience. So this is why people who live in rural America or live on hills, mountains, and Appalachia and the Rockies, they struggle with cell experience, cellular networking. So they have trouble. They're a couple miles from a cell tower. They're okay. 3, 4, 5 miles. The tower companies, T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T, are less inclined to build more cells in very precarious and difficult to place locations. Putting towers on mountains is hard. Putting towers in neighborhoods can be hard because NIMBYs, not in my backyard. They don't want cell towers near their homes. And then people complain about the cell network. It's like, we'd love to put one here, but you guys push back. You know, we see that all the time in the news, like people yelling at Verizon installing crews, and they're like, oh, my kids and radiation and this and that. You get the tinfoil hat crew going, you know what I mean? Alex Jones comes out of nowhere. You're like, what?
Yep.
So, like, anyways, the capacitive experience, it's all relative to two things. You need a tight tower grid, you need a cell tower every so far, right? And then the tower, or excuse me, the mobile network operators, Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile, they have to upgrade the towers every so often to create more capacity as the capacity needs and demands increase. When it was just calling and texting, you needed X amount of capacity. Now that we're doing everything through data, very intensive tasks and applications, a lot of video, our data demands have increased by extreme multiples. The average person has gone from using 1 gig of data 10 years ago to now the average person using between 10 and 20 gigs of data per month. So you've increased in just the last decade, you've increased the amount of data you've used by 10 or 20 fold. If you go back further, it's even worse because 10 years ago, we were consuming a little bit of video. 20 years ago, we weren't consuming video on our mobile devices. We were using our phones basically for email, call, and text. And that was if you had a data plan on your phone. A lot of people were just call and text. So our demands have increased. Therefore, you need uniform capacity. You need a cell tower every mile, right? And those have to be upgraded frequently, like every 2-3 years, so they can be fitted with gear that is more capacitive. You're basically putting, for those of you out there that have a home ISP, it's like you're taking a home ISP's connection, putting it to a cell tower, and broadcasting it everywhere so people can connect their mobile devices to it. These network operators have a lot of work to do, and they spend tens of billions of dollars. Like Verizon's annual capex is like 20 billion, right? Annual. AT&T is like 24 billion. T-Mobile's is 13 billion. They spend a lot of money to give you
Can you explain what capex is?
yeah, so capital expenditure. This is the money that a company spends to upgrade all of their towers. So they're like, oh, John and all of the people in his city, we have to upgrade these sites. They're using a lot of data. Look, the network is barely making it. So they have to climb those towers, take down the old radios, add new ones that can bring more capacity to the network. And they've got to retrofit. And oftentimes, John, it's not enough to just upgrade a tower.
Mhm.
You have to start splitting cells. Used to have 2 towers in a 5 mile radius. Now you need 3 because there's people moving in and there's people doing more data demanding, right? Dude, Florida, from what I understand, in the last 2 years because of the pandemic, so many people moving to Florida, they've had
Florida.
to add, yeah, they've had to add a ton of small cells and little cell spots and upgrades to towers. They've had to accelerate their spending there. Verizon came out in an article and said it. They're like, data demands are so high now in Florida. We've had to build new towers, add more small cells. It's like everybody moved into Florida, and the same thing in Texas. There was a lot of movement into
Mhm.
Texas.
Yeah, I know Austin's becoming like an LA or New York. Like that's how many
Yeah.
people are moving in there. And
Right.
Marion brought up a really good point. She said
Mhm.
that now I see parents give tablets to preschool kids, and to me, it's wrong because I feel used to babysit their kids. And honestly, we can debate whether they should in terms of like a psychological standpoint. But I guess I want to get into uh, that's creating extra demand on these networks, right? Because not only do you have parents using their phones, but you also their kids, and you have a 4 or 5 year old daughter. Is that she uses an iPad or a tablet too, right?
Yeah, my
Which
daughter has an iPad. She's got games on her iPad. We give her a certain amount of time to like watch content on her iPad. She does like little sing-alongs and stuff. Like it's an entertainment. It's also games. She does like some educational stuff with like math problems. It's the same way that we use our devices. Our devices are learning tools, productivity tools, and they're also entertainment tools. But there's no way I'm giving my daughter something to substitute me engaging my daughter, right? I had video games when I was a kid. I used to play Madden 93 on my Super Nintendo. I played Super Mario. I don't think that should be taken away from kids, but I do think that good parents manage things for moderation for their kids. Kids are not able to manage things on their own. They don't have the skills. They don't have the brain development. If you were to give a kid 1,000 donuts, if you were to give a kid unlimited minutes of time on an iPad, they are going to exhaust all of those things. They don't know how to manage. They don't know what's good for them. So it's imperative that what parents giveth, they should also taketh, right? And make sure that they're doing right for their children. So yeah, I do believe in kids having things that make them have fun, but you're giving it to them in doses. You're giving it to them in small times. So then they can also appreciate and understand what a schedule is and an agenda. Here's the things you have to do. Here's some things that you enjoy that you can do sometimes and occasionally. It's all about moderation, John. We've talked about this before, man. Everybody enjoys certain things, but you cannot overdo anything.
exactly. Taking a step back here to your early point about these networks building out capacitive networks. I mean, I don't know how it is in your market. It's probably similar here in LA, but when someone says like, "Oh, my network is really good," and then they pull out a speed test and they see a really fast speed, and I think these networks have caught on. They know that we judge a network based on the speed results. There's the speed test app. And then also, I think was it Neville Ray from T-Mobile that they use the freeway analogy when they're talking about capacity. They're like, oh, it's you're going from a 2 lane freeway to a 4 lane freeway. Do you think that speed tests are like, let's say if someone doesn't have really good coverage, do you think that a speed test is more or less an accurate way to kind of test the performance of their local tower, or do you think there's better ways to do it?
Using a speed test app is going to show you the amount of available capacity on that sector of that site. For those of you that don't know what a sector is, if you look at a cell tower, there's usually 3 sectors, each sector facing a different direction, right? So the signal sprays. So it's got like one sector facing east, another sector facing west, and maybe the other sector is facing like north, for example. Or it could be some variation of it, southwest, northeast, whatever. So they got these sectors and they face homes and they face businesses. They're out there trying to reach, all their customers. And when you speed test the network, there are so many variables. How close are you to the tower site? How many people are on the tower site at a given moment. Mind you, some places, certain brands, certain companies are very popular. So, for example, in LA, T-Mobile is really popular.
Mhm.
So it's more likely that T-Mobile is going to experience moments of congestion because their market share is so high. Sometimes you want to make a decision about who your carrier is based on market share because it could be a gift and a curse. Having the market share means that they're probably upgrading and building a lot of tower sites, but could also mean that it's very congested if they're not upgrading fast enough. So, what's the best network in LA? You run speed tests to try to analyze, well, who's got the most available capacity for me. So if I'm on AT&T, for example, generally speaking, I think LA has a pretty decent performance rating for AT&T. Most
They used
customers
to be
are
bad.
probably happy. They used to be bad.
Yeah, they were very congested. Ever since they started adding LTE Advanced and the 5GE, they've gotten so much better. But before that, everyone complained about AT&T and how slow it was.
Yeah, so they responded to their consumer demands. And I know that Verizon has done a lot to upgrade in LA. They've got a lot of customers too. I mean, there's a lot of people. The LA County probably has approaching 20 million people as a
Yep.
county, I'm assuming. LA proper is at least 8 million people, right?
Hmm.
I mean, it's massive. So the demand on these cellular networks is going to be really high. Some people don't even have home networks. They do everything on their mobile network. So those gigs of data that would have been consumed on their home Wi-Fi, throw that out the window. Now those gigs are being consumed on a mobile network on an unlimited data plan, right? So that puts even more stress and more
Yep.
usage on a network. So when you speed test the network, it's a proxy of how much available capacity is on a given site. If you move 1 mile, you might start connecting to a different cell. You speed test that cell and it's like way fast. You go back to the previous cell and it's way slow. It just all depends on so many different factors. And there's interference issues. We're going to get into like some muddy areas when we start talking about interference and neighboring signals from other devices and other networks and stuff. I mean, there's all types of things that could happen. By the way, LA is kind of sort of a border city. It's close enough. Like when you're in San Diego, I guess there's certain frequencies that like Verizon and Sprint used to use where
Hmm.
they got interference from like companies like Telcel in Mexico,
Yep.
and stuff like so like it's a whole like different world of analyzing radio waves, and like I said, there's so many factors, there's so many things. When you speed test, you're just looking to see is there available capacity wherever I'm at, whichever cell we're connected to. Bars on phones can be deceiving. You could have 4 bars and 1 megabit per second. You could have 1 bar and 50 megabits per second. There's no direct correlation because it's just how many bars show on the display. What you really got to do is you got to see that quality of the connection.
Yeah, definitely. To my knowledge, I don't think we have any interference issues here in LA, or not as much as we do in San Diego. Because I grew up in LA, but I also lived in San Diego for a year when I went to San Diego State. And as you get close to the border, not so much, well, kind of near Chula Vista, but as you go further south, near like Baja California, as you get close to Tijuana,
Mhm.
signal definitely gets sketchy there because you're right there on the border. Um, One of the things that I've noticed here in LA is that the companies kind of build out to where, based on the average income. You talked about T-Mobile being popular. For me, I used to have T-Mobile, and it's not very good in the upper middle class neighborhoods. Like over here, we have Woodland Hills, Studio City. What else? Beverly Hills, West Hollywood area. Like T-Mobile's fine in those areas, but I also see Verizon, AT&T having better networks in those areas, whereas I don't really see them making an investment in cities like East LA or Whittier, some of the lower class neighborhoods. Do you think that also kind of plays a role in how people use their phones to consume data?
That's an interesting, observation you've made. So it sounds to me like consumer demographics are kind of different between the carriers and how that impacts the cellular experience within certain
Mhm.
parts of town. So if I'm getting this correctly as you were pitching it, the well-to-do, high socioeconomic parts of the town are predominantly AT&T and Verizon heavy.
Correct.
So therefore, there's going to be a lot of attention from Verizon and AT&T as the network operators to put cell towers in those places, building out a really strong network. And then T-Mobile's market share in those places a lot less. Therefore, the number of towers they've built and the support they provide is lesser, right? And then you go to certain parts of the city where it's a little bit lower socioeconomics, and because T-Mobile is known as the bargain carrier, right? They're a little bit more affordable. They maybe just by pricing, they cater to the needs of a different group of people. So it sounds like an issue of like not an issue, a situation of like white collar, blue collar,
Hmm.
liking certain brands, and then those brands building their networks better or worse in certain places. That's kind of the impression I'm getting.
Yeah, definitely. I'm this is probably an LA thing that's very judgmental and immoral in my opinion, but it's almost like if you have T-Mobile or if you're on prepaid, then you're kind of at a peasant level. But if you have Verizon or AT&T, you're the big baller here. I don't know if it's like that in Cleveland or not, but that's how it is here in LA.
So for a single line customer, those things are mostly true. If you look at Verizon, for example, for a single line on their most premium plan, you're paying $90 plus taxes and fees.
That's what I got right here.
Yeah,
That's it's $90 if
I
you
feel
use
like your
auto
bill's
pay, and the
probably
auto
over
pay
$100, right?
it is, yeah, I think it's like $120
Yeah. So if you
with
were
taxes and fees.
yeah, and if you were on like a multi-line account, the price per line decreases,
Hmm.
it hurts a little bit less, right? So if you were to have 4 lines of their most expensive plan, you're probably paying 220 plus taxes and fees.
More or less, yeah.
Okay. And then at that price point, AT&T is 85 a line for a single line for their most expensive plan. And then when you go multi-line, it's probably $200 plus tax and fees.
Mhm.
And then T-Mobile's got like buy 3 lines, get 1 free or something. So you get 3 of their Magenta Max lines, 3 at 80 or 85, I forget what it is, and you're getting the 4th line free, right? So you're essentially just paying for 3 of those lines, so you're a lot lower, right? So you're coming in at like 35 a line or something like that, right? So maybe 120 bucks?
Kazi
I don't
here
know.
says I pay 175 for 4 lines with EBB discount, taxes and fees included. I think Kaz is in LA. Kazi,
Mhm.
correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you're in LA. I think we've talked about this before.
Yeah, I mean, you're literally going 20, 30, 40 bucks any type of swing when you go from like Verizon down to AT&T and T and then down to T-Mobile. I mean, that's a lot. You look at a budget. Somebody's like, "Well, that's my fuel for the week."
Hmm.
You know, that 40 bucks a month. You know, or I don't know what it would be like for somebody who's got like
I was way
a
off.
yeah, maybe it's a
South
difference.
Florida.
Okay, maybe it's a difference of like fuel for the week. You know, that money you would save in that month just by switching from like Verizon to T-Mobile. It might even be 60 or 80 bucks, right? So I mean, people are they're gonna try to make the good decisions for their budget. And I mean, it just so happens to be that way. So T-Mobile has branded themselves as the more affordable carrier. AT&T kind of brands themselves as a premium carrier who has like some discounts, right? They have like AARP, they have like teacher discounts, first responder discounts, nurses, doctors, teachers, educators. And then there's Verizon, who has just always been this very premium carrier who's very expensive, relatively speaking, to their competition.
Yeah, definitely. And I know that, one of the topics that you've been covering on your channel, which I think is also another very relevant topic, is that people are, as inflation is higher, higher than ever, people are starting to switch carriers. Sometimes people are like, you know what, I know Verizon has the best network, but T-Mobile here is not the best, but it's decent enough for me to get by and to save money. I know, and also I know Verizon, who's also known, to have the best network, but also being the most expensive carrier. They've kind of been sprucing up their prepaid offerings. Like, they're rebranding Visible. They brought TrackPhone, which is another prepaid company. Do you think that these companies are starting to take notice of people making switches and trying to save money every month?
Yeah, as the money has flowed less, they've had to respond. You know, the consumer has not had the expendable income to upgrade to more premium plans and to upgrade to more premium brands. So plans and brands. So the plan being what choice of plan you choose when you go onto a network, and then brands meaning do you, pick whatever, Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile. So I feel like T-Mobile has its customers and people that are looking to save money and people that are looking for a more competitive offer. And then, AT&T gives you nice bundling discounts, right? So like if you have their Uverse, you have their fiber, if you're an educator or a first responder, so you can have a somewhat premium experience with discounts. And then Verizon, what they've learned the hard way is that they haven't been growing. They don't add customers. They retain them pretty well. They don't lose many customers. But now we're starting to see this phenomena where people are looking to save money, but they want to keep the Verizon network access. So they're going with Spectrum Mobile. They're going with Xfinity Mobile. They use the Verizon network, but they get a discount from Spectrum or Xfinity by bundling services. So they're going to pay $30 a line from Spectrum or Xfinity and still have Verizon, as opposed to having Verizon and pay like $50 or $60 a line, even multi-line discount, right? If you have a single line on Verizon, you're paying upwards over $100 for their premium plan. If you move to, say, for example, like Spectrum Mobile, which use Verizon, you might pay $40 for that line. So you're going to cut your wireless bill in half or less, and then you're going to bundle with the cable, and you'd be happy to do so. Going to save the money. And who knows, they might give you some other secondary small discount for the home service. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, to your point, Kaz made a comment. They said when my 36-month agreement is over, I was considering switching to Metro due to N41 being everywhere, or otherwise cricket if AT&T C-band becomes more abundant. And exactly, people are, they're starting, and also I think it has to do with prepaid, right? Because prepaid has gotten better. Before it used to be, when I first signed up for what was my first? I think it was Metro PCS. It was known as the brand where like, oh, you would only get it if you didn't have credit or you couldn't afford the better plans. But I think as prepaid services get, their offers get better and their performance gets better, I think people are starting to take notice, and I think people are starting to migrate. In terms of still staying relevant or relative on a topic, do you think that as data usage grows, do you think that some of these prepaid offerings are still a good choice for consumers to use?
Yeah, the prepaid options are great. You can save money, have a mostly the same network experience. You're not going to have the priority data experience, right? You're going to be on a higher QCI. So for those of you that don't know what a QCI is, they're essentially your place in the priority of the network. So prepaid is QCI number 9, postpaid is usually QCI number 8, and then your premium postpaid customers that are paying for like the elite plan or the Magenta Max plan or the Verizon Get More or like the business, not the consumer plans, but like the business enterprise plans, those might be on QCI 7, right? And like first responders and stuff like that. So you have these levels of priority. When the network is congested, they get to retain some of that capacity first. And then in the process of them getting priority, you as the QCI 8 or the QCI 9 lower priority on the network, you get slowed down first. That only happens occasionally. In most instances, 90% of the time or more, the networks are built out well enough with enough capacity where the congestion is very um it's occasional. It's not consistently slowed down. So like you would literally 20, 30 minutes passes by, there's no more congestion on the tower. People have left, people are moving, they're off the towers or the usage is starting to slow down, that sort of thing. It comes and goes, but it's not that bad. Especially in places where they build out the networks really well and they upgrade a lot, like Cleveland, like LA. Now, LA's got a problem in that, like, the highways are overloaded with so much traffic at times, they probably have to put every available asset on every tower. Anywhere near, like, you're stuck in traffic, everybody drives. So, like,
Everyone's on
you've
their
got
phones
all
while they're stuck in traffic.
exactly, they're all consuming something. So, like, they're gonna have to put millimeter wave technology on all these towers, along with all the other fixins. So they're just gonna have to upgrade all those towers. So being on a priority plan in LA actually makes sense.
Hmm.
Being on a priority plan in a suburban area probably doesn't, it's not a requirement, So, like, you could have prepaid in 90% of the country and not be impacted by slowdowns. But there, I could see some leverage situations where having the higher priority is probably pretty nice, which would explain why we see like first responders, having the higher QCIs, like QCI 7, and AT&T's got QCI 6 for those individuals, right? But prepaid, even though you have this, that you're lower priority, lower on the totem pole, the networks are good enough. You're paying a nice at a nice discount rate to be on the network. So instead of the $90 plus tax and fees for Verizon, you go on Visible and you're paying $25 a month flat. Or you go on AT&T prepaid, instead of paying $85 for the postpaid elite plan, you can go on AT&T's premium prepaid and pay half of that. 40, 45, $50. They have promos sometimes. Another thing to consider is like Boost and Cricket, prepaid versions of all these network operators at half the cost.
Yeah, exactly. And my Pixel 6 that's on an AT&T prepaid SIM, that's a really good example of it compared to my Verizon line. With the AT&T prepaid, I think I can get away a little bit, because AT&T has a very capacitive network here. But sometimes I do feel a little bit slowed down. Like I'm in an area known as Northridge. So whenever I'm near Cal State Northridge or the mall, a few blocks down, I can feel getting a little my service getting a little slower. I mean, not to the point where it's not unusable, but if I'm out there at 3 p.m., it's fine. When it gets around 5 or 6 and people start coming to the mall and they're on their phones, I feel DoorDash, Uber Eats, Grubhub orders coming a little bit slower. It's not a huge huge difference, but I pay attention to it, so I know it's a couple second delay. But Verizon. I mean, I'm sure before they started building out their 5G, I mean, Verizon was unusable. It was just because a lot of people have Verizon in my area. It's an upper class neighborhood, so definitely a lot of people on Verizon. And so yeah, I exactly. I think, but yeah, if you're not paying attention, I don't think the average consumer will notice. I think T-Mobile is also starting to build out their network really well. They're getting fast. If someone is in a I guess the average American, if they have all three choice T-Mobile, AT&T, and Verizon, and they want to get good value, how do you think they should go about? And I know this is kind of a big question, but how do you think they should go about picking out a carrier based on value and performance?
The first thing, of course, you just look at the economic times. How much am I willing and able to spend on my service? All right. And then the question becomes, who fits into that monetary value? I've got X amount of dollars willing to spend for wireless service. So who fits in that category? Is it all three? Is it two? Or is it one company? Can I have postpaid service? Can I afford that? I can take advantage of the higher priority access. Or has my budget pushed me into prepaid territory and MVNO, right? These other brands, the flanker brands, who have access on the big networks, but they do so at a discount wholesale rate. You have to see where your economic demands are, right? What can you actually budget? You make the decision on the budget. Now you look at your options. So if I can afford postpaid and I can afford any postpaid, then you're just choosing who's going to work best for you and give you the most value. Some people like the media side of things. So think about this, John. If you want the best available service and all three are good, well, now you can choose on other stuff. Who gives
Exactly.
me the most tethering hotspot? I need tethering hotspot. I need at least 20 gigs of hotspot. Say that's what someone needs. Um, Verizon gives me the Disney bundle. AT&T gives the HBO Max. Well, they used to, right? T-Mobile gives Netflix on us. Do those things matter? Perks. If none of that stuff matters and it's just about having a cell line, well, then you start looking at like prepaid and you're like, well, I use a few gigs of data per month and I'm mostly on Wi-Fi. Well, can I get away with just using, say, for example, like Cricket, or can I get away with, say, for example, Boost? You start looking at prepaid to save money. So I think it always starts with the money piece, and then it goes to like what else is considered to be secondary.
Hmm.
All right. So like I said, John, for me, I don't have money problems. Like I've budgeted everything so that way, like I don't have to make a wireless decision based on how much something costs. Somebody, you could say like someone's blessed to not have that problem.
Hmm.
But I mean, it's nice that I get to use Verizon and not only get their exceptional coverage, but I also get the Disney bundle, which my daughter loves Disney Plus. So do I. My wife loves Hulu, and I love the ESPN Plus. That's all stuff I don't technically have to like pay for separately. It's
Mhm.
built into my wireless plan. I'm still paying for it, but it's a component of what I'm paying Verizon, right? If that stuff doesn't matter to somebody, then it's just like, hey, let's save money. Let's go to the MBNO. Let's go to the visibles of the world. Let's go to cricket. Let's go to prepaid. Let's start looking at ways to save cash.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad we brought up Hulu and ESPN Plus because that's what I've been using ever since I got my Verizon line. I'm not gonna lie, if I didn't get the Verizon line, I'd probably not have those, but it's definitely a nice perk to have them. The only subscription I have is YouTube Premium. I watch YouTube a lot. I like the fact that I don't get to see ads, and they also throw in YouTube Music in there for free, so I really appreciate that. It's not
Mhm.
as robust as Spotify, but gets still gets the job done. And by the way, as we get close to the 1 hour mark, if you guys have any questions for myself or for Sneed, definitely post it in the chat. Kazi here, they said that most consumers won't notice if they're on QCI 9, QC7, unless they're on a congested tower. And I agree. If there's a fire nearby here in LA, which we have a lot of, unfortunately,
Yeah.
but if the firefighters need that network to communicate, it's like, bro, my Snapchat, my TikTok twerking videos can wait. So, that's not
Agreed.
important as
Mhm.
putting that fire out. So that's basically why these networks have their priority levels because if unfortunately the mass shootings, all this stuff are they're not uncommon nowadays. But if cops or firefighters, if they need priority access to the network, because they're working on something, that by all means, definitely take them. But the last thing I wanted to get into with you, Sneed, is that um I like to have this conversation because it's fun. It's definitely speculative, but I think it's interesting. As someone who are watching these networks build out, and their networks are becoming more, or they're getting faster and they're becoming more capable. Where do you think, in terms of media consumption, where do you think things are going next? 5 or maybe even 10 years.
Well, um, I think what's going to end up happening is the way that people use their devices at home and while they're mobile and outside of the home is going to be almost the same. There's going to be blurred lines between mobile usage and traditional home networks. Right now, I would say that most people are doing their data intensive tasks at home on a home network, right? So if you were to calculate someone's home usage, it might be 1 terabyte of usage, like 1,000 gigs, and their mobile might be 15 or 20 gigs. All right. That's going to start to blur. We're going to start seeing people use 50 gigs, 100 gigs
Mhm.
per month on their mobile usage, and they'll continue to use, you know, 800 gigs or 1,000 gigs per month. But you're starting to see that more and more people are going to be relying on mobile networks. I mean, we're also seeing fixed wireless access, people using cellular networks as their home network. People are signing up for T-Mobile Home Internet, right? That service is available in some places. People are using Verizon Wireless Home Internet, right? Fixed wireless access, 5G home. And that's a component, that's a realization that wireless networks are creating enough capacity where they can actually do that. Now, is that going to hurt the mobile network experience because too many devices are on the network? We'll see how that plays out. But something tells me that the carriers have responded up to this point pretty well. When the customers have demanded it, they've built it. I expect that trend to continue.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think things like virtual reality, alternate reality, or not alternate reality, augmented reality, or even the metaverse are gonna kind of start being, they kind of become more into fruition as the mobile network technology grows?
I mean, maybe 5 years from now,
Hmm.
we're doing everything through mobile that isn't home related, like watching movies and stuff at home. But everything else we're doing mobile. Like an AR experience could take you outside of your house as you're walking down the street, or you go to a park, you slap on goggles, and you're doing some kind of a training. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And even like enterprise and companies and businesses, they might be doing certain things out in the field, and they're not going to be inside of a business network or an in-building network solution. They're going to be mobile.
Yeah, definitely. The last question that I wanted to ask you is, with you mentioned fixed home wireless, because a lot of people, like, like I said, we're both in big cities, so we don't realize how many people are in rural areas, and they might not have internet at all, or they might have one option. Do you think fixed home wireless is going to kind of contribute to people using more data, or even for education, like a lot of there's remote learning now, people working from home? Do you think that things like fixed home wireless is going to help, or contribute to higher data demand?
Well, I think it's going to help the people out in rural America because you're going to have cell towers that are going to be upgraded so that they can handle both the mobile network and the fixed wireless customer. So, for example, somebody who's previously only had a DSL option or a satellite option, and they're not very good. DSL is slow, satellite is also very slow, and oftentimes the latency is so high, the data just getting connected is a challenge. So, fixed wireless access is going to be helping those people. I don't know, maybe we end up with 20 million households on a fixed wireless connection. Those are
That's
20
huge.
million those are 20 million households that were stuck on old DSL that I mean, John, we're talking about technology from the 70s and 80s where like things just haven't progressed in these places because there's no return of investment. These companies are looking at those places like, what's the point? We're going to upgrade, spend tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars, and it's going to take us 80 years to get that money back. Not worth it, right? So unless they get government fund bucks, right, they're not going to build those networks. But the cell network they have to upgrade anyways. Well, let's just upgrade it with a lot of capacity, and then we'll sell it to those people at those homes.
Yeah, definitely. And for people who don't know don't know what fixed home wireless is, and Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's whenever like companies like Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, they basically put a tower in an area where people they don't have cable, or like you said, they're using DSL or an outdated form of home internet. And the fixed wireless basically replace their home cable. Yeah, am I correct, or did I explain
Yeah,
incorrectly?
basically you would order the service from like say for example T-Mobile or Verizon. You sign up for their 5G home. They send you a box, a gateway, and it connects to the nearest cell tower. It brings the signal into the house. That gateway is a two-in-one. It's a receiver and it's a broadcaster. So it's got the Wi-Fi built into it to create the signal for your home. And it's got Ethernet ports, so you can connect your TVs and your desktops and your laptops directly to that gateway. Then also broadcast a Wi-Fi 6, 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi, 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi. It's regular Wi-Fi. Now the thing that's important there is that you're connected to a tower site that's near enough to where the signal is dependable and quality, and there's enough capacity that it can support the mobile network for all the mobile users for their smartphones, but also provide good enough capacity for your home. That's essentially what fixed wireless is. It's a cellular home internet solution.
Yeah, and here's a bonus question. I know you've used T-Mobile and Verizon Home Internet. I know you use AT&T Fiber now, but in regards to Verizon T-Mobile Home Internet, do you think in a couple of years they can be good enough to replace or even be a solution to home cable, or do you think they still got a lot of work to do?
They got a lot of work to do. They've got to create a lot more capacity, and because they're going to have more and more users on the network with more and more use cases, they're going to have to continue to upgrade and build out the network, meaning they've got to upgrade current towers. They may have to add more towers in order to offload some of that traffic. Like I said, back in the day, it was cool to have a tower site every 5 miles.
Hmm.
The data demand was low. But as the network usage increased, instead of serving, you know, this amount of customers in this space, if you split cells and add another tower and you put it right here, now these customers are served by this site, and then these customers are served by this site. So you split the space. Now you've got X number of customers, half of them on this cell, half of them on that cell. You created more capacity by adding a cell, right? That's probably what the T-Mobile and Verizon are going to have to do. They're going to have to upgrade more sites and they're going to have to build more sites to support all the data demand that these customers are going to be using. And that could be costly. They're going to have to continue to spend a lot of money. They spend a lot of money, but that's not going to stop. They're going to have to continue to do so.
Yeah, I agree. I don't see these companies slowing down at all. They're going to keep building out networks as data
John, they
demand
make a lot of
increases.
money. Believe you
Yep.
me, they make tons of money, but they have to spend to continue to make that money.
Yeah, definitely, and I know that's something that T-Mobile can definitely improve on. But we're not gonna get into that today.
Yeah. Yeah, they got big
That's a
goals. They
different
certainly do.
conversation.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
can definitely spend more money and improve their network. But again, thank you very much, Steve. Thanks for stopping by. I know you're extremely busy, so thank you for taking time out of
I
your busy
appreciate it, man.
schedule.
Thank you.
Thanks for kind of having this conversation with me about American media consumption. Also, kind of giving us like a mini crash course, on mobile technology. That was very good. But definitely check out Sneed's YouTube channel. Very awesome channel. Again, he's about to hit 20,000 subs, so let's help him get there. And I know that mobile network technology is not sometimes not the most fun topic to talk about, but Sneed definitely keeps it very fun, very entertaining, and he's also very good at interacting with his community members in the chat. So I definitely recommend his channel. Sneed, any closing thoughts?
I appreciate the opportunity to come on, the show to talk to your following, your subscribers, your viewers. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Maybe you learned a couple of things about cellular networks and kind of why, you see the cell phone tower crews very busy upgrading tower sites all the time. They're trying to keep you connected and give you a very enjoyable mobile network experience. So that's what's going on. And the next time your cell phone is not working or connected to a network, chances are a cell tower went down, and hopefully it comes up quick. Because we don't like it when we disconnect from networks, John.
Exactly, especially like here in LA, people are like, "Wait, what do I do with my life?" Like
I
it's just
know.
people start panicking.
Yep, we're kind of used to it. It's like our lifestyle now, being connected.
Yeah, it really is. I know for me, it's the most frustrating when I can't get directions. It's like, well, I can always, stop by a gas station, ask for directions, I guess.
Yeah, we don't like that, man. This ain't the 70s, right?
Yeah, definitely. Just having this conversation with you, and help me realize how dependent we are on these networks. And like Steve mentioned, whenever we see crew working on a tower nearby, they're trying to make sure that you can get make sure you can order your DoorDash or just watch your cat videos and watch Netflix all at the same time. So
That's
again,
right.
Steve, where can people find you on the socials?
You guys can obviously I'm on Twitter. You can just look up Sneed Mobile Tech, two E's in Sneed Mobile Tech, and three words. And you can also find me on Twitter at Sneed Tech, all one word. And I've got that Twitter account. I've got a Patreon page as well. You could access that link from my YouTube channel in the description of my videos. I do live streams. I do podcasts. I do all types of different, speed testing and network testing videos. So that's where you guys can find me.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely check out Sneed's YouTube channel. So thanks again, Sneed. Appreciate you stopping by. We definitely have to have you again on the channel for our next conversation.
Thanks, man.
And thanks to everyone for watching. Thanks for everyone commenting. How do you close out your videos? We out this piece.
We out this piece.
Peace
Peace.
out.